Good day, my name is Bluesuit and today I'll be going over my review of the early access vampiric survival crafting ARPG known as V Rising. In V Rising, you take on the mantle of a powerful vampire as you rise from your coffin after centuries of human oppression. Long ago, the vampires were a mighty race feared across the land until a war with the humans stripped them of their castles and land and left their lineage in ruins. Now, armed with an engineering degree, it's time to take your revenge. Beyond the opening cinematic, there's very little story in V Rising. Instead, after a brief tutorial, you're released into the game world to travel around, establish your castle, and feed on the blood of your enemies. And blood definitely plays a big part here. In most survival games, you're focused on keeping a full belly, but in V Rising, you'll need to occasionally drink blood or you'll perish. What's great about this system though is that not all blood is created equal, and scarfing down on rats just isn't the same as tasty humans. Every enemy in the game belongs to a certain blood class, with the exception of skeletons and the like who have no blood. Bears and wolves, for example, belong to the creature class, and feeding on them will give you bestial abilities like increased movement speed or protection from sun damage. Rogues and warriors also have their own bonuses that different players will prefer based on their playstyles. Personally, I prefer the worker class. It's a pretty uncommon blood type, but it will allow you to harvest resources more efficiently in the game world. Deepening this blood mechanic is the purity. When you encounter an enemy, their blood will have a percentage score next to it. If you drink blood that is purer, then you can unlock stronger bonuses of that blood type. This works out great in combat because as you're fighting groups of foes, you'll need to keep an eye out for those pure bloods, so you can save them for last and feed on them. The other big survival need is darkness, or rather avoiding the sunlight. Not gonna lie, daytime sucks if you're a vampire. Spend more than a couple seconds in the sun and your health bar will rapidly disintegrate and you'll respawn back at your coffin, and with no way to speed up time or sleep the day away, you'll need to trek back to your corpse while sticking to the shadows. Combat in general is one of V Rising's best systems. Crafting will increase your stats to let you hit harder, but it's through the game's skill system that provides the depth. These skills are unlocked as you hunt boss enemies throughout the game, and each belong to one of the different schools: Blood, Unholy, Illusion, Chaos, and Frost. There are 40 different spells in the game right now, and they cater to all different playstyles. If you want to be more of a mage, then you can equip a myriad of ranged damage spells, but there are also spells that increase your abilities as a tank, melee damage dealer, or even as a support vampire if you're playing with friends. Then there are also general vampire powers as well, like turning into a wolf or healing yourself by spending some of your blood pool, that generally focus more on out-of-combat abilities. The only downside to combat right now is that melee combat doesn't feel as involved as the magic. It's still fun managing your spacing as you try to take on hordes of enemies, but each of the different weapon types don't really distinguish themselves from one another. Later on, they do get some cool weapon abilities, but for the most part, there's not much reason to choose one weapon over the other, and I hope to see this remedied as early access progresses. Crafting in V Rising is pretty underdeveloped at this time, but there's still a decent chunk of content to sink your teeth into, from building castles to fishing. Much of the game world's environment is destructible, and you'll use these stones, ores, lumbers, furs, and plants to slowly build up your castle and fill it with all sorts of things that let you live your best vampire life. Building features in your base require a huge amount of resources though, and if you're playing in a solo game, it's really quite grindy, and you're gonna have to spend a lot of your time watching your character swing at trees and stones. Many crafting games now focus on automation, and introducing a mechanic like thralls that could slowly do this for you would be a great way to free you up to get back to the fun stuff. Many base features are basic staples of the genre that let you create weapons and armor and turn resources into more useful crafting and building materials, but some are actually pretty inventive as well, like the vermin nest that lets you spawn rats and bugs that you can use for basic needs, or the blood altar that lets you go on hunts to take down powerful world bosses and unlock their recipes, abilities, and materials. Taking down these bosses has honestly been the most fun thing about V Rising, especially in co-op, as you slowly whittle down their health until they're weak enough to feed on. Co-op in V Rising makes every aspect of the game more fun, but it's not without its drawbacks. For one, the game is already somewhat laggy, especially during peak hours, but in co-op it does get noticeably worse. Personally, it isn't so bad that it bothers me at this point, but I certainly hope to see it improve as time goes on. Additionally, you can't transfer your characters between games. I understand that this is to prevent high-level characters from entering your game, but since you now have to create a new character and replay the tutorial whenever you want to enter a new server, the host will always have more playtime than everyone else. I'd like to see a creative solution to this down the line where maybe you can keep your character and your skills but lose your gear, or something similar. These small nitpicks aside, the co-op has been a great experience in a password-protected game with friends. V Rising has also been developed with PvP in mind, and it's a lot of fun too. With all the different skills available, fights are a flurry of magic and steel that are satisfying to play. You can pick up V Rising right now on Steam for $20, and like most day one early access titles, it's not going to be worth that right away, but it comes very close. There's a lot to do in solo, PvP, and co-op modes with great graphics and fun combat, but it doesn't take long before it starts to get repetitive and somewhat boring due to how grindy the crafting system is to offset the current lack of content. So I'm valuing V Rising at $18, and I do recommend it if you already have someone to play with, but if you're looking to play solo, I'd check back in a few months. I hope you enjoyed this review of V Rising. Come see me on Twitch where you can watch our reviews in progress. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you thought about it. Until next time.